reflect on quite the last 10 months. The championship, of course, was just 9 days ago, MLS Cup at Monterey Stadium, and the Crew over Seattle with that historic victory, 3-0. President General Manager Tim Bezbachinko, Technical Director Pat Onstad, Head Coach Caleb Porter, Defender Josh Williams, all in queue to talk with you, to reflect really on one of the most memorable seasons in club history and what a 3-year saga it has been from the stewardship of the Hasselman Edwards families to right now where we're talking about a title. So with that, I will leave the opening remarks to the President and General Manager, Tim Bezbachinko. How you doing, Tim? And it's great to be celebrating 9 days later and still talking about the Crew as champions.
Thanks, Neil, and obviously thanks for doing this for us. I know everybody's in different locations, different challenges as everyone prepares for the holiday season, but what's over my shoulders is why we're here. And I want to thank everybody for joining us for this chalk talk, so to speak. It's been a challenging year, and we've had to overcome a number of challenges and obstacles to get to where we were last weekend. And I'm so proud of our players and coaching staff, and it's a reflection of the ambition of our ownership and of our city. And so today we wanted to get everybody together and really talk through kind of what our experiences were like leading up to the match. I think from my position is a little bit different from Pat's, and certainly different from Caleb's and Josh's. And so we wanted to share that experience with you all, because you're our family, and unfortunately not everybody was able to join us down at Monterey on Saturday to be there as we hoisted the cup up, and we sang in front of the fans and walked around with the trophy as right after Jonathan lifted it up. So I'm just excited about the opportunity to be a part of this club. When I came back home, it was always our vision and our mission to do it. Then the pandemic hit after we had a year sort of turning over the roster. And we, frankly, at various moments that we can talk about today, we didn't know if the season was going to be played, let alone the playoffs, let alone the week leading up to MLS Cup, and the emotions that were going through us as we were being tested daily and figuring out which type of players, which type of roster Caleb was going to have at his disposal on the weekend. So anyway, just so thankful to be here today, to share in this experience with you, with our family, and so thanks for joining us.
It's President and General Manager Tim Bezbachinko. And Bez, before we switch gears, just being a Columbusite yourself and coming back and having this accomplished so quickly, is there a little bit of personal reflection on being a guy who was at the first game at Monterey Stadium and then seeing it on the grandest stage last Saturday night?
Absolutely. I mean, being a fan, even, the team came on board when I was in high school, and we used to drive down to the Shoe and watch the games from McBride and all the legends of the Crew's past. But I think over the years they've had success. Obviously, this team has meant so much to the community, and obviously through the 2008-2009 team, they won some trophies. But I think since then, the league has really evolved and changed. And in some ways, the league was at a different level than where the Crew was at. Maybe not necessarily on the field, but certainly off the field. We have a great fan base, but at the same time, maybe not the environment from which the fans can really showcase their love and passion for the team. So I think coming back, people questioned the decision to come back to Columbus. I think certainly when you leave a place like Toronto with their spending prowess and their pocketbooks and their ability to compete internationally, I think people questioned it. And I'm sure Caleb can speak a little bit about that in terms of his decision to join the club. But I think it's the same thing that Lucas said, is we chose Columbus. For me, there was personal reasons, but really at the end of the day, it wasn't necessarily to be about my family. It was about the ambition of ownership to win trophies. And that's what we do in our business. We want to win trophies, and we want to be champions. At the beginning of each year, we typically have a team meal, and I'll always share with them, my life, the biggest moments in my life, are getting married, having kids, and then the next crop is always when you win trophies. and it's the people that are around you and that who you get to share that experience with that make being a part of a sports club so special and a unique position and a unique role. So so happy to be able to help provide this for the city of Columbus, especially as we move into this new era. We look to do so many exciting things with the new stadium and training ground, but the recognition that we're getting globally, it's just different than it was in 2008. The calls that I'm getting from agents worldwide and from sporting directors across the globe is just something so different than it was 10 years ago. And as we look to host the World Cup in a few years, we look to be a consistent contender so that we are, at the forefront of everybody's mind when they think about champions in MLS and in North America.
Yeah, it leads to a broader discussion, which we will get into as we are part of this championship chalk talk. There's trophy winners all throughout the panel, and then this guy talking. The technical director is Pat Onstad. So much great work behind the scenes. Pat, good afternoon. You've accomplished that as a player with the Houston Dynamo, but now as an executive and in the front office. What did last Saturday mean to you? And more importantly, the job never stops, right? You're working on player acquisitions and figuring out the roster. That's the nuts and bolts of MLS, right? As soon as
it is. But I think for me, it was Tim kind of hit it on the head. It was a difficult year for Caleb and the guys. I spent the time with them in the bubble down in Orlando, and everything we went through down there and the adversity that we faced, I think actually prepared us for the playoffs. To go through everything that we had to go through with guys getting COVID throughout the whole playoff run. I know we always speak about Darlington and Pedro, which for us were huge losses, but we also had guys early on in the playoffs and towards the end of the season that we dealt with that, and we had injury throughout the year. But what I was proud of is just watching these guys just kind of gel together and become an unbelievably resilient group. And I think, Caleb can attest to that. And I know Tim with his championships, these guys can attest to, you have to go through that to win. And then when you do win, it's that much more special when you're able to kind of break through and be resilient as a group. And that was what I was probably most proud of on Saturday night.
Head coach Caleb Porter and Josh Williams, defender. Thanks, Pat. We're going to get into a long form conversation. Of course, we've got questions from those of you out there who want to talk to the 2020 MLS Cup champions. Caleb, congratulations. You've probably got the best backdrop of all of us, basking in the glow of your second title as a head coach, and one that I know is very near and dear based off of really the last 2 years and trying to get this club off the ground and back into its new era. As you reflect over the last 9 days, what are some of the conversations you've had with some of your colleagues across the soccer landscape, and how are you reflecting on title number 2 for you and number 2 for the club? Well, Caleb is muted, so we need to get him unmuted because I know the answer will be good. There it is. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate it. Yeah, unbelievable feeling and accomplishment and achievement. It's kind of the gift that keeps on giving, so to speak. And I know Josh can attest to this. You wake up every morning and you think about and reflect on just what we went through and what we did, and the fact that we were the last team out of 26 that wanted to do the same thing. All 26 teams wanted to be the last team, and we were the one. We were the one that was able to get through this year, the challenges, the adversity, to come together and to win in such a dominant way. I think against the past champions was icing on the cake. So it's a great feeling. As you've mentioned, it's the start though. We all want to sustain this. We don't want to be a club that competes every once in a while. We want to be a club that contends and competes and wins championships each and every year. So we will take a quick recharge. Although there's never a day off in this business. There's always something to do, decisions to make. But we'll take a quick recharge and then we'll get back to work. But the one thing I want to say is, as I've reflected, the thing I keep going back to is this is for Columbus. This is for the people. This is for the Nordeca. This is for the supporters. This is for the club and the people that work in the club, the players, the staff. And I think that's what this is about. This trophy is not about the trophy. It's not about anything other than bringing something for the people, all the people that love the crew. And, I think it's not just about saving the crew anymore. It's about succeeding with the crew. And so we move in an era now that we will want to continue sustaining and succeeding in this club for years.
Well said. Defender Josh Williams, he's been beaming really since I saw him last week up in Cleveland at the Browns game, a massive champion in his own right. Josh, Pat brought up an interesting point about the adversity that the team's been dealt with all season long, all clubs, MLS is back tournament, then the resumption of play, the COVID in particular, and the playoffs for the crew. But when did you know, as long as you've been around and around in Columbus, when did you know that this group had championship moxie?
I'd say about the time Lucas put the ball upper 90 in the first game. No, I think I've thought about that a lot, and I think after the season, you never know what it takes until you actually win it. And I think up until the point where we found out that Darlington and Pedro, where Caleb brought the team together and told us, and the way in which the whole team handled it. I was looking around, a little scrum there as Caleb's talking, and nobody really seemed that awestruck by it, or there was never a look of we're in trouble. It was just, this is where we're at. Like Pat said, we've been dealing with this all year, and what I think was so important about that is Caleb just told us the truth, just flat out. This is where we're at. This is, the mission still needs to be accomplished. We trek forward. And I think at that point, and then also watching Aiden just completely ball out in the training before that. So I knew he was ready. We knew Derek could step in at any time. And I think the whole team as a unit seemed locked in. So whoever was called upon, I felt comfortable with them coming in, and the way those guys handled it, it was obvious that they were prepared, and Caleb did a great job in preparing us all year for that moment. So, I think when seeing everybody as locked in as they were and just prepared for the moment, I think that's, when I knew going into the championship that, we had a very good shot at doing this.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, and Caleb, I can throw you into this as well. In the last 48 hours, with all the commotion about Darlington and Pedro not being available for the championship, I would imagine, having gone through some of the experiences that you had already this year, that the poise had shown in the training and the preparation, knowing that you were going to put in a game plan that had to stifle Seattle, and you did exactly that.
Yeah, again, I've said it, you win a trophy on the day-to-day. You don't all of a sudden just do it. Every day is an opportunity to prepare to do it and to be ready to do it. And there's a lot of things that go into it, more than anyone knows. But you have to do it with a team, and you have to do it with guys from 1 to 27, not 1 to 11. And, I've been through a lot of things where guys have to step in last minute. And I told a bit of a story to the guys, before the playoffs started, of a couple situations where last minute in Portland, we had guys that, whether it was a flu on game day where we had, a goalkeeper change, or, different situations where we had guys that had to step in. And so it truly took a team to win this trophy. And I think you saw that in the celebration after. It wasn't just the 11 that played. Every single guy, even the ones that didn't play or didn't dress, felt a part of it. And that's something that we believe in and we preach. It's such a family. That's cliche, but it's true in our club. Tim talks about that all the time. I talk about it. Pat talks about it. We believe in that. We take care of our players, and they know what they're a part of, and they know what they're trying to do. And when you join the Columbus Crew, you join a family, and you join a family that's trying to do something very, very special in our league in the game and in the community in Columbus.
I think the examples are far and wide when you speak of the family notion. It's not just lip service. People see it in the community. The fan base knows that. The fan base is part of the family, and that's what made this championship so special, especially after the last 3 years. Josh, it resonated with me before we got on this that when you started in 2010, of all the alpha dog Argentines that have played in Columbus, from Pipa to Schelotto to Zelarayan, you've been on the field with every one of them. When you think of Lucas's performance in the championship, obviously it resonates on an iconic level, but that's a pretty neat feat to think that you've been a part of a great era and decade of Crew soccer.
Yeah, decade, man, you're aging me there. But yeah, they all just, and touching on that, they all had some special quality. You know, I remember Schelotto seemed like like a folk hero when I, my first training session. And then that season, I just remember thinking that this guy is just so exceptional, and everything about him, from the way he controlled the ball to, his vision. And then you start playing with people and you start being able to, I didn't even talk to Schelotto. He was like, so I don't know. He's almost like a mythical creature walking around the locker room. So I just kept my distance from him. But, with people, I was able to actually, build a friendship with him. And I'd always try to pick his brain, and just the way they think, you could tell their understanding of the game is so different almost than everybody. And you could tell in the plays they make, and the touch on different passes. And with Lucas in this game, there's just special moments, and he's somehow just finds a way to just get in position of key moments in the game, and almost every play in the playoffs almost went through him. You could tell there's on the second goal when he traps the ball with his chest, and then the perfect second touch. Everybody in the stadium thinks he's going to hit it with his left, and he just lays the perfectly weighted pass to Derek. And just little moments like that it takes special players, and I think we absolutely hit it out of the park with that guy. And I couldn't, what I love about him so much is obviously his talent comes out on the screen and when you're watching him, but the type of guy he is in the locker room is second to none. He's a great teammate. He wants to work hard. He wants to get to know people. His English is getting better, which it sounds kind of funny, but some people don't take that as serious as I think he is. And that's a way of connecting with the locker room and bonding with us. So as good as a player as he is on the field, I think he's just an exceptional human off the field.
Well said. And this leads to, I guess, a broader perspective on hitting on a big name player like that, the harmony of all the right notes coming together with a guy like this from opening day to the final kick of the ball in the championship. And I'm going to bring Tim and Pat and Caleb to wax poetic on this. While you accomplished what you wanted with this guy, Tim, we'll start with you. And you dealt with a guy like Giovinco in Toronto. How do you continue to find that harmony? I think the club knows that they want to elevate their game in terms of the competitions they're going to have. We're going to get into the CONCACAF Champions League in just a little bit, but to support this roster, to build around him, to continue to find maybe that player and not break the bank necessarily for it, but the crossing of the T's, the dotting of the I's to make that happen, because it's still not an easy street when you're talking about an MLS roster that way.
Yeah, I think obviously there's a couple different ways to look at it. When we're looking to build a roster, you need a certain level of talent, right? You're not going to win a championship unless there's a just sheer amount of talent or good players on the pitch. And I think certainly we knew that we had something special in Lucas, and I think it doesn't take a rocket scientist or a great scout to see the talent that he brought or brings to the club. The other thing, though, is now that we're looking into next year, it's not just about talent. It becomes how do the pieces fit together in this puzzle? How does the locker room come together, especially with the team that's already won? We need players that are hungry. We need players that continue to push each other. So you don't want to just go out and get a really talented player who's maybe not willing to put in some of the work day to day that Caleb was talking about, or willing to defend if you're up a goal. So there's a number of pieces that go into to building roster and building a team that's going to compete for championships. One little story about Lucas is just, the way our scouting system works is you have a director of scouting and there's ground scouts. And so names come up and we call them, short lists of players. And so we typically will try to bring between 3 and 5 players sort of to a final decision, and then we'll present them to Caleb, and Caleb's involved the entire way. But this one was one where we had sort of 2 to 3 final players that for one reason or another, we liked all 3 of them. And so normally Caleb he likes all 3 or likes 2 of them, and then we kind of decide and go through the pros and cons and go through sort of our template building. And but this one, it was very clear right from early on, and Caleb and Pat can talk to this as well. It's just he liked Lucas. It made Pat and my job much easier because right from the beginning there was sort of a twinkle in Caleb's eye when he went and saw him, and when he went and met him, he knew that there was something special in this player. And I think it's not just the talent. I think Caleb saw how good of a person Lucas was and how he would fit our group. And I think that's so important to touch upon, is to have players that are going to fit this city, fit this club, and be ambitious to do something different with their career. And you heard that from Lucas in terms of what it meant from him compared to his role with Tigres before he got here.
And Caleb, I love the line that you've shared in recent days after the final whistle, where he said, "You changed my life," and you said to him that you've changed mine. So I think the embrace of love that you showed for each other, and is exactly what you need in the locker room, the family aspect that you speak of. But when did you know, because you've coached great players in your own right with the Diego Valeri, who's similarly popular in Portland, and now Lucas has that chance to be one of the next iconic faces of the club if he already isn't. But when did you know that this guy was going to be maybe everything you thought he was going to be?
Right away. I think Tim talked about the process. I think what's really special about our process in this club is just the collaboration, that we have. It's really stimulating. I've been in several situations in clubs, and it's really enjoyable to work with the leadership group, with Tim, with Pat, even right now in the off season, as we make decisions on how we build off the core, what positions are we looking for? What do we need in those positions? What type of players and profiles are we looking for? It's such a calm, methodical collaboration. And we challenge each other. We don't always agree completely, but I'll be honest with you, most of the time we do agree a lot. And that's really important when you have similar visions. That helps. And I think we all really get along and collaborate in a very good way. So I just want to mention that. But with Lucas, I think we all liked him. We all knew he was a top player. As Tim said, it's not hard to see a top player like him. He had already had a pedigree. It's not like we were pulling him out of, under rocks somewhere. He had already had a pedigree. But as Tim said, it's important because there are a lot of experienced players out there that have a pedigree that don't work and don't fit. And in some ways, you have to be even more careful with an experienced player, because if you get the wrong one, and that guy, comes in the locker room with the wrong, kind of attitude, or doesn't back up, the designated player tag, you're in trouble. And you've seen it happen a lot in our league where guys get those designated players wrong, or maybe the fit's not right, or the profile, or now you have to maybe adapt your system because these guys got to play. So I think, we all agree that he was just the perfect fit, especially in losing, Pipa, a legend. It was important that we had an experienced guy that could come in and kind of drive our team and run our attack and run our style of play in the right way. Now, are we going to, 5 years from now, do the same thing with this? It depends, and I think that's where it's fluid. You have ideas and you have experiences that you rely on, but I think Tim, Pat, myself, we're always evolving our blueprint and adapting with the way of the game and the way of the league.
Pat, has anything in terms of the perspective of, I'm sure you had an eye on next year, as did Caleb and Tim, looking to keep the rosters as sharp as it was and in position where you were to win a title this year, and it comes to fruition. But has anything changed since then, where you maybe look in a little bit of a different direction, or does that change your line of thought? And I know Neil McGinnis and Issa Tall, a big part of your staff too, that have played a big role in helping shape this roster.
Yeah, I mean, Neil's our scouting director and has done a really good job for us, presenting players to us to make decisions on. I think for us, you know, some things, those are big moments to play well in a championship. For a player like an Aiden Morris, for example, it gives us confidence to think, okay, this kid's got an opportunity to go on and do something special in our league. So it does make you rethink about you know, and maybe not that exact position, but positions over the field and how guys perform in big moments. And last thing we want to do is block a homegrown player who we all believe in and has shown that he can play at this level by bringing in a central midfielder that's going to take minutes from him. So it does change your mindset a little bit in terms of the championship. But for the most part, I think we'd already seen him have flashes and moments where he'd been successful. And it's why Caleb and Josh were just alluding to is everybody was confident. We all knew that what Aiden would do in the final. I don't think any of us were that worried about him and how he performed. So we already had confidence in him. So it hasn't changed our mindset that much. But these moments and these games really showed the true character of a lot of the players. And fortunately for us, we basically had everybody that stepped on that field was fantastic.
Yeah, Caleb, I found it funny. I ran into a friend who was talking to Danny O'Rourke before the game, assistant at IU now, and everyone knows he was a part of the 2008 championship team and was with Aiden. And he said, if anyone can get it done on this type of notice, it's Aiden. And from a place in the preseason where I know you were very tough on him, not only just being an IU guy, but wanting him to play up to his potential, and to see him hit all the right notes at the end of the year in the biggest game had to be a stage of personal pride for you.
Yeah, I have pride in all the players that I work with. I don't play favorites. You know, I love them all. I care about them all, even guys that never play a minute. Care about them as people, and I try to push them. And you said I'm tough on guys. It's tough love for sure. I'm demanding, but it's more in a believing in you type of way. Sometimes it takes a little bit for guys to realize that at first, but over time, I think the players, you know, they understand my motives. My motives are very simple. I want all the players to become the best they can be, you know, and that means sometimes demanding and believing and pushing you know, and so Aiden for sure, along with all the players, Derek Etienne's another one, which wasn't, you know, maybe when we got him this sexiest signing, and you see what he did and how he evolved, but yeah, very rewarding to see a young player like Aiden step into a final. I think he was the youngest player to ever play in a final, and for him to do what he did and to be as confident as he was, that's why, again, I go back to the daily process and the preparation and the details. You know, the devil's in the details every single day, and so we prepare every single player every single day to develop, to grow, to be ready, and to be able to step in.
So many great individual accomplishments, and we've talked about Aiden Morris, we've talked about Lucas De La Rayon and Cup MVP and Newcomer of the Year, Nagby Goal of the Year, Save of the Year from Aloy Room. I think as a whole, though, the collective and how the roster was built, maybe it hasn't been talked about in days since the championship ended, and you can all chime in on this. And Josh, I'll start with you. The team defending 300 minutes to close the season without allowing a goal. And then the way the year started, especially at home, the longest shutout streak at a home building in MLS history, and even going back to last year. So the collaborative effort that you were a part of this year, even with some injuries and some rotations, but a consistent group to finish it out, I think that's an underrated trait of what this championship is all about. And of course, championship teams, everyone thinks of defense.
Yeah, well, I mean, to start, between Harry, myself, and Jonah, I think we've been together, 4 or 5 years now. So, and then you throw in a guy like Milton, who shows up every day. I mean, I still look at Milton as like a 19-year-old kid, but I know he's older now, but he's all of these guys that I'm surrounded by, I have 100% trust in them because I see the amount of work they do and I see what they do on the field every day in training. You know, these guys are never taking days off. And that starts with Jonah. And I think Jonah sets the tone. You know, as demanding as Caleb is, I think Jonah is just as demanding in training. And he's not the most vocal guy as in, you know, this rah person, but he sets the example on the field every day. He's always prepared. He comes in, he gives his all every day. And if you have somebody like that as the captain who's leading that line, it's easy to, you know, show up every day and just kind of replicate that. And I think, you know, as in preseason, as Vito gets hurt, it's you know, not only Booba and I's job to step up, it's everybody on that back line to now come together and collaborate and move forward. You know, and I think Jonah did such a good job in leading that line, and you have Aloy behind us, and then, you know, Tarbell could step in at any notice. He proved that. So, you know, just to have all of these guys working together in such a positive environment, and all of us had a similar mindset. You know, towards the end there, I think, you know, the reason why we believe so much is because we've been training for this, and our mindset hadn't changed since the beginning of the year. And Caleb had been driving that point since the beginning of the year as well. So just to have a unit like that who's so willing to put in the extra work day in and day out, and to hold a standard. And I think that's the thing, though. The standard never dropped the whole year, and we just kept, you know, just kept winning and kept winning, and it didn't seem like it was luck or anything like that. It wasn't by chance. It was because we earned it and we worked for it.
Celebrating championship number 2 in crew history with our fine panel. This is our championship chalk talk, our holiday gift to you, the crew fan out there. And I know many have questions. So gentlemen, we've got a few that are out here. So why don't we get to it? Josh, to continue that thought, we'll start with you. Christopher Sandlin asked, Seattle came out strong in the second half. They made their big push within maybe the first 15 minutes of that second stanza. What was your perspective of that and how you adjusted and then able to calm things down?
Oh yeah, to that I would say, I remember during the game what I was thinking, and then watching it back after the game, I remember thinking we were kind of bunkered in there for the first 15 minutes probably in the second half. And I would say on the field, you never feel as they're that much of a threat. And I don't know, maybe that's again back to the belief that we had, and I personally just never thought they were going to score, and I felt that way since, you know, the playoffs started. I remember when New York scored the first goal, I was like shocked. I'm like, what? I didn't expect that at all. So on the field, I don't think you feel as you know, there's such a threat. And, you know, I think if you're watching and you're not in control, I think that's, you know, it's a little different. But on the field, when you're in control, you know, you're able to gauge, you know, the guys and how they feel, and the feel of the whole team. We knew that they were going to come out. We're up 2-0. You know, it wasn't like we were going to, you know, can dominate the whole game. This is an incredible team we're playing. So we knew we were going to have to stand strong. And I think just bend but don't break. You know, we knew we had weapons up top, and Lucho and G and Lucas, that as long as we, you know, we were bending a little bit but we weren't breaking, we would get them, and you know, those guys would work their magic like they've done all season. So it might have looked a little frantic, but I don't think it was as frantic for us as it might have looked.
I think to piggyback that, you know, our philosophy is to decide games and control. We want as much control as possible, to increase your chances of winning. And we talk a lot about control all the time with the ball, and we're capable of doing that. And you've seen that in a lot of games where we control games, with our passing, with our possession, with our positional play. But we also talk a lot about controlling games without the ball. And ideally, we're controlling the game without the ball by pressing and turning the opponent over, and then transitioning to goal. But we also talk about the fact that it's very naive to think in any soccer game, especially in MLS with the parity, it's naive to think that you're not going to be playing against a team that's going to also control periods of the match. And so we never want to be in a low block. That's not what we prefer to do. but we prepare to be there because we know in any soccer game, whether it's late, the last 10 minutes, or whether the opponent just executes better for a period of 5 to 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And so being in a low block is something you have to be prepared for and comfortable with. And, we show video of what I would call winning plays. And we actually showed a lot of those, Josh, right before the game, defending crosses, blocking shots. Those are things that, people don't look at and celebrate and talk about, but those are plays that happen in any soccer match. And those are plays that I would say our back four and goalkeeper and our holding mids made better this year than any team in the league.
Okay, but to follow up on that, there was a question from Alex Albrecht. He wanted to know what your message was at the halftime of the final.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is again, we try not to change anything we did in the playoffs. We literally approach the playoffs exactly like we did regular season matches from a preparation standpoint. And, I think that, sometimes people, when they get in these so-called bigger games, they do different things and they overthink them. And what we tried to do is be the exact same way we were in the regular season. And we talked a lot about that as a staff. And I would even mention before the game, listen, guys, it has to be exactly like we always are, because players will pick up on it. And those are things that are really important. So our process at halftime is pretty simple. I come in and I give 3 points, and then Ben shows clips. Ben Cross, our assistant coach, shows clips that he's clipping during the match with our video analyst to reinforce those messages. So they get a verbal, and then they get an auditory and also a visual message, because these guys are different learners as well. And some guys, they don't hear a word I say. Some guys, they need to see the video clips. So I think that was a really good thing we did this year at halftimes of games. I think it really helped encapsulate the first half, what we did do and didn't do from an attacking and defending standpoint. Did you like that, Josh, correct?
Yeah, I like that. Obviously, as you're in the game, you're seeing the game a
Good
little
answer, Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's only one right answer there. No, but I think as you're in the game, you're seeing the game differently than Caleb or Ben or or even our video guy leave you upstairs is as he's clipping it, he's seeing how the play's building up. He's seeing different ways that we can exploit them, and then also just touching on if what our plan is, at the start of the game, if this is working, then we just continue to do it, and this is why. I think it's great that Caleb can come into the locker room and say, this is what we need to do, and then here's a clip of why. I think that that just kind of sums it up and seals it. Like, as a player, you feel good about that, just being able to see exactly what he's talking about and having examples. So I think that's great technology.
Great insight, gentlemen. We'll switch gears, because with the spoils of a championship now comes this continental competition in the CONCACAF Champions League, whenever it may be played. In 2021, they're wrapping up the 2020 edition actually tomorrow with the final, LAFC taking on Tigres. And there's a question here. So we'll start with Tim and Pat, and Josh, you can reflect as a player to maybe step into that role, and Caleb as well, because you've coached in it before. It's been 10 seasons since the crew have participated. What do you think an MLS team needs to be successful in that tourney? We've seen time and time again the struggles against Mexican clubs, even though LAFC is trying to put a stamp on that with their run right now. But how do you look at the roster now different? And that's a question I brought up to you, Pat, with knowing that you're going to have these extra games on a bigger stage.
Actually, I'll let Tim answer this one, because we've kind of been going through discussing this a lot in the last few weeks. So Tim, you want to take this one?
I think the first, thanks, Pat. I think we talk about being consistent contender, and we don't, and that's our vision for our club, and that's what we talk about. We don't say we're going to win MLS Cup every year, because in MLS there are multiple trophies on the line, and we want to be a part of all of those trophies. I think a lot of it depends on what the structure is next year, to get really pragmatic. What LAFC is going through right now, and I hope that they win it on behalf of all of MLS. I think it'll be fantastic. It's different from what the normal structure is, where you're in preseason and you're playing games maybe 8 weeks in a row every Wednesday, and the type of roster that you have to build would be different for that setup versus what LAFC is going through now. So perhaps COVID requires them to change the structure of Champions League so that it is in December next year. We don't know. I mean, right now we're planning for games to be played as early as mid-February because that's when they normally are. And if that is the case, then we will have to focus on depth in all positions. We will have to focus on, how do we rotate players so that you don't get injured. But to compete with a Club America in Azteca at 13,000 feet or whatever it is in Mexico City is just an enormous challenge. And it's something completely different than it takes to go and compete against Minnesota on a Saturday in Major League Soccer and it's a different type of roster. It is. So we have to sit down as a group and go over what the structure is. And once we know the structure, only then can we decide on what the final roster will look like and what our goals will be. And I think I know Josh, we were at the Browns game the other night, and Josh was very excited about Champions League. And you can see it in people's faces because it's a global competition. And it's an opportunity, if you win it, to go and play some of the best clubs around the world in Liverpool's and Real Madrid's and Juventus's. So the opportunity is there in front of us, and we would love to do well in the competition and eventually to win it. But it also, we need to have more information before we really start to get into the details of what the roster will look like.
Sounds good. We'll sneak in maybe 2 more questions here, and then Benji can have the final thought, and we can all be on our merry way here for the holidays. Josh, Stephen Williams wants to know, will you eventually write a book about your soccer journey?
Man, I haven't thought about it yet, but I don't know. Maybe I will. That's not something that I'm thinking about now, but it's all wrapped up. Who knows, man? It's been a hell of a journey. So maybe
Our book club can help you write it, Josh.
There you go.
I was gonna say, there's a great genesis to this. Is you got the initial call to come play for the Crew for the first time in a class at Cleveland State, right?
That's right. That's right. And at that time, I was throwing my books out. So I don't know. Maybe I'll pick that up another time. But it's a good idea, maybe.
It is. I guess this is for everyone. What does it mean to go from nearly gone to new champs? Josh, we'll start with you.
Man, it that hasn't even sunk in yet, to be honest. It's just such a I remember hearing someone say that if a production studio would have got this script, that they almost just throw it out immediately because it's almost unbelievable. You can't even write something like that. So just the ability to lift the trophy and to go over to the Nordeck and to celebrate. And someone said it was, did it mean anything that there weren't as many people in the Nordeck? And I remember thinking, to me, when I lifted it up, there was 1 million people in there. Like it just seemed like the whole city of Columbus and everybody who gave, a little effort in keeping this team there, that everyone was there that night, and the amount of pride I feel for, not only Columbus, but this team and to be able to watch that whole experience happen, and then to feel such lows and disbelief that this is a possibility that the Crew will no longer exist, to just a couple of years later, you fast forward and all of a sudden we're lifting the trophy in that same stadium and in front of those same fans who did such an exceptional job in keeping this team here. It's I don't know, it's almost a story you can't even begin to believe, and I'm kind of in that mentality right now. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it.
He's been beaming from ear to ear. It's no joke. I've got visual proof of that. Caleb, I think one of the great feathers of the cap is with your second MLS Cup and being a part of a fraternity of Bruce Arena and Ziggy, to do it with different clubs and different conferences, and Ziggy having accomplished one of those here. So I think there's a lot of storylines you could look at in terms of how this title was accomplished. But you and Tim had mentioned that in your introductory press conference. You were here to win titles, and MLS Cup was at the top of that list.
Yeah, that's what this is about. It's about winning titles for the fans and the supporters. And there's a big motivation in coming here to take a club that had been saved, where the fans rallied behind their club. That's the type of club. I don't want to speak for Tim, but I'm sure he feels the same. It's the type of club I want to be a part of. And one of the reasons I was so passionate after the game and in almost having an out of body experience, sprinting down the sideline. I rewatch it going, what was I doing? But I think it was because I just wanted to bring that trophy to the supporters so badly because they deserved it. And, we're not going to stop. There's nothing going to stop us from continuing to sustain and compete and contend year in and year out. This is only beginning. We're going to work just as harder than we ever have to keep this club on top. We were at the analogy I've been using. We were at the top of the mountain this year. We don't stand up there and defend. We come down and we climb again just as hard next year to get back to the top.
Well said, Pat. And I know I mentioned your titles as a player, but you were right in the thick of this too on the sideline as an assistant before moving to the front office. So to see this transformation has to be something very special for you too.
Yeah, I'll piggyback a little bit on what Josh was saying. It's funny, when we won the championship, I was excited, went down on the field and, got on the stage, but I took a few minutes after to come up, see my family. And then I actually just went off on my own in the suite and was overlooking everything. And I just thinking back to how important this trophy was to this city. My family moved here 7 years ago. We've embedded ourselves in our community in Gahanna. We love it out there. Our kids have gone to school. My son's now at Ohio State as a freshman. So we love the city, and to be able to win a championship for the city and knowing how much that means to the fans was fantastic. So it was pretty enjoyable.
Well said, Technical Director Pat Anstad. I call him the Prime Minister, by the way, because he's running the show. But I think it's apropos we give it.
We all call him that.
Yes. Well, then off we go. Away we go. And I'll give you the last word here before we have a little championship video to close things out. But your reflections here is we're about to turn the calendar into 2021 and another season of Crew Soccer as the defending champs.
Yeah. So I think what Pat was touching upon was our ability to reflect on what was just accomplished. And I think for me, it all starts and ends with ownership. Obviously, the fans saved the team, and the city of Columbus and the county and the state stepped up. But without Dr. Pete Edwards and the Haslam family, we wouldn't be here. And what I can tell you is they are engaged. They are engaged. They are intense about winning. There's not a day that goes by that I don't speak to one of them, if not both of them. The phone call earlier, that was Jimmy, because he wants to hear about our moves possibly in free agency or reentry draft. So we should all be. We are so grateful, and our fans should be grateful of the great ownership that we have leading this club, and so just so blessed to have that. The next thing is that we're always looking forward. I think. Looking back at the way the team was saved, I think it's an incredible story. As Josh said, someone should write a script for it. But it's always about what's next. And I think all of the people on this call and our ownership are always focused on what is the next chapter we're going to write. And so when I look in the stands and we talk about the Nordeca and our fans, we have the best fans in the league. But we need more. We need more. And so we're thinking about what we're going to do in the new stadium. We have this beautiful training environment that we're going to build in the Ohio Health Performance Center and this new stadium. But our family needs to grow. And so, I think at the beginning of the year, we challenged all of our fans to tell this story. We have a lot of really diehard Crew fans, but we need more to grow and to fill out this stadium and make sure that in this new venue, we're at the top of the league in every way. So I'm so excited about what we're going to do next season and the season after that, to share more experiences with all of you, lift more trophies, because it starts to become part of your DNA that you need to do it. You need to do it again and again. And so as we move into this new venue, wouldn't it be great to lift the trophy again? And that'll be our focus this offseason.
Yeah, big year ahead in 2021. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, it was part of the question. The fans have been wonderful through this whole thing. And when this wild world gets back on the straight and narrow, Tim, there is a plan to celebrate on a higher level this championship season with them in a bigger capacity, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we'll let obviously the virus decide on in terms of the virus kind of is in control right now. But when there's a way for us to do, if it's a parade or a way to gather together once we're all vaccinated, we'll certainly do that, because we don't want to miss this moment, because it's these shared experiences that we have together that make you desire to do it again and want to do it again. And we want to make sure that we can thank the fans for everything that they've done and look into their eyes rather than a computer screen, and really share the moment with everyone who's part of this Crew Nation.
Well said. Tim Bezbachenko, President, General Manager, Technical Director Pat Onstad, Head Coach Caleb Porter, Defender Josh Williams, leaving memories for a generation of Crew fans, 2020 MLS Cup champions. Thanks, guys, for being part of this championship Chalk Talk. Merry Christmas to all of you. Happy holidays and happy 2021.
Back live at Mopre Stadium. We're glad you're with us. MLS Cup 2020, the final game of the tournament, and a big one it will be here at Mopre. They'll welcome back their starting goalkeeper, Aloy Room. He's back in tonight and starts for Columbus. Aiden Morris gets his start. Got a big task ahead of him tonight. Set for the whistle. MLS Cup 2020 is underway.
It's been a long time coming. It wouldn't stop for nothing.
Aiden Morris plays it outside to Harrison Awful. With ball in far post. Celery shoots and scores for Columbus! Columbus is up 1-0 in Major League Soccer's final game of the 25th season. Eventually brought down by Aiden Morris. He'll have it stripped out by Ladero, then he'll win it back. Outside to Harrison Awful, with ball in, settles it, Celarayon's feet, settles, no, he gets it to Etienne, who shoots and scores for Columbus!
So tell them get out of the way. They ain't got nothing to say. We running the town, no slowing us down. You better stay in your lane. It's been a long time coming. It wouldn't stop for nothing.
Against the defender, wins it. Inside the 18, lays it back. Celarayon's there, shoots and scores for Columbus!
It started on the first day of preseason, and we never wavered. We weren't scared to say this was a goal, and we went after it. We attacked it.
That's the whistle, and Columbus has won Major League Soccer's Cup Final. 3-0 to score. They defeat Seattle, and they get the trophy.
This was going to be our day. They had the past history, but today was about the Columbus Crew. It was about us winning a trophy, and it being our time and our day and our trophy.
Champions of Major League Soccer, it's a fairy tale for the fans. Glory to Columbus!